It was a chilly autumn evening when I set out for my cousin's apartment, the city streets glowing under the flickering streetlights. The hum of traffic and distant voices filled the air, but tonight it felt quieter somehow, like the city itself was holding its breath. My cousin's place wasn't far, just a 20-minute walk through downtown, but something about this walk felt different. The air was thick, almost oppressive, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I walked past the usual sights, the bright neon signs, the constant shuffle of pedestrians, the coffee shops with people chatting inside. But the longer I walked, the more the crowd seemed to thin. The streets that were normally bustling now felt empty, the shadows growing longer in the waning light. I glanced around, but the silence that had fallen over everything was unsettling. It was as if the city had forgotten to make noise. The alleyways I passed started to look darker, their corners stretching into something unrecognizable. As I turned down one of the side streets that would take me to my cousin's building, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. A figure standing under a streetlight, barely visible in the dim glow. Tall and unnaturally still, it was dressed in a long coat, though I couldn't make out any features. My heart skipped a beat, and I looked away quickly, convincing myself it was just a stranger, maybe someone waiting for a cab or a friend. But the figure didn't move. I told myself to keep walking, that it was nothing. The city was full of odd characters at night. But the longer I walked, the more the figure lingered in the back of my mind. I could feel my pace picking up, my footsteps echoing louder in the empty street. I glanced back once, just to check. It was gone. Relief washed over me, but only for a moment. The silence now felt even thicker, as though the world had been turned on mute. The sound of distant traffic seemed muffled, and I found myself looking over my shoulder more frequently. A sense of unease crept in, spreading through me like ice water. I was almost at my cousin's building when I reached a familiar intersection. It should have been a bustling corner, but it looked different tonight. The neon lights were flickering, the usual buzz of the convenience store and late-night diners was absent, and the shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally long across the pavement. A faint, almost imperceptible hum echoed from the darkened building across the street, an old, abandoned office tower that no one had used for years. It had always been an eyesore, but tonight it looked alive. Then I heard it. A voice, soft and faint, like a whisper carried by the wind. "Come inside." It sounded like my cousin, but distorted, warped in a way that made my stomach twist. My feet froze in place. I knew my cousin wasn't home. He had texted me earlier saying he'd be out for the evening. I turned toward the building, my body unwilling to move forward, yet unable to stop looking. The windows of the office tower were dark, but I could have sworn I saw movement, a figure behind the glass watching me. The voice called out again, this time louder. "Come inside!" Suddenly the streetlights flickered, and the world around me felt like it was distorting, the buildings warping and bending like shadows at the edge of my vision. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned and ran, the cold air biting at my skin. I could hear footsteps behind me, following, matching my pace, yet when I looked over my shoulder there was no one there. I didn't stop running until I reached my cousin's apartment building, breathless and shaking. The elevator ride up felt like it took forever, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end as I stared at the flickering lights in the hallway. I finally reached his door, knocked 3 times, but there was no answer. The apartment felt cold, empty, just like the city streets outside. I pulled out my phone, ready to text him again, when I froze. There was a message from him, sent just moments before. "Don't come to the apartment. They're waiting for you." I glanced at the hallway behind me. The shadows seemed deeper now, as though the walls themselves were closing in. And somewhere, just beyond my reach, I could hear that voice again. "Come inside!"